team is served food in a toilet. Why is there no respect for sports persons other than cricketers? That's going to be one of my other talking points tonight. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. Suspense grows over who will be the next Congress president. Shashi Tharoor throws his hat into the polling fray. Ashok Gehlot also likely to be in the contest. Will it just be the two of them, or will Rahul Gandhi step in at the last moment? On a packed political Tuesday in Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi virtually signals the start of the campaign by addressing the mayors of the state. JP Nadda leads the BJP campaign. Arvind Kejriwal met with Modi chants in Vadodara. He claims that the BJP is getting nervous. India today exposes the apathy for kabaddi players. Food for women athletes cooked in a toilet in Saharanpur. Sports Minister Anurag Thakur promises action. A Sports Authority of India official is suspended. DMK's A. Raja courts controversy with a casteist slur again, makes derogatory remarks against Brahmins and the Vedas. BJP raises a demand to bar Raja from contesting elections. The hijab showdown continues in the Supreme Court, with the Karnataka Government Council accusing the Popular Front of India PFI of provoking students, calls pro-hijab protests a conspiracy. A fourth accused in the Chandigarh MMS scandal turns out to be an army man from Jammu. Police suspect the accused girl was being blackmailed to send videos to hostel mates. Jammu and Kashmir leader Mehbooba Mufti objects to the Gandhian hymn Raghupati Raghav in Kulgam schools, calls it part of the BJP's Hindutva agenda. The BJP slams her. After a 32-year-old long intermission in Kashmir, movie theatres reopen in the valley shut by terror. It's showtime in Kashmir again. And the festive season pushes up airfares to new highs. Travellers fork double the amounts they paid last year. Highest increase is on low-frequency non-metro routes. But first, turn to the breaking news coming in this evening at the very top. Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot has now fueled speculation that he is likely to contest for the Congress president's poll, could leave the Rajasthan Chief Minister polls after calling for a meeting with his MLAs later tonight at 10 p.m. tonight. Gehlot is also set to be in Delhi tomorrow and meet Sonia Gandhi. This has fueled speculation that a day after Shashi Tharoor met Mrs. Gandhi, could Gehlot also in a way put forward his claim to be Congress president. So far he has been very reluctant, saying that it is Rahul Gandhi who should be the Congress president. So will Ashok Gehlot also now pitch himself into the battle? All of this also, remember, is coming as a possible change in the way the Congress has approached this entire issue. Until now, the Congress has never had presidential elections since Sonia Gandhi took over the party in 2000 after defeating Jitendra Prasad. Now the buzz is that we could see a contest between Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot and Lok Sabha MP Shashi Tharoor. Remember, the nominations will start next week. Both the leaders have met Sonia Gandhi. Tharoor claims, or sources close to him claim, that the Gandhi family will remain neutral in such a presidential contest. What's really brewing in the Congress? Could we finally see a non-Gandhi as the Congress president? Take a look at our top focus.
The Congress looks set to hold election to pick its president after 22 years. All indications so far point a face-off between Rajasthan CM Ashok Gehlot and MP Shashi Tharoor. The Kerala MP met Congress President Sonia Gandhi at her residence on Monday. Sources say Sonia made it clear the Gandhis will not nominate a candidate and will remain neutral. However, sources in the party say Ashok Gehlot could be the unofficial candidate backed by the Gandhis. He might file his nomination for the top job between September 26th and 28th. Gehlot has said time and again he would prefer Rahul Gandhi take the reins.
देखिए, आज भी लोग ये भावना रखते हैं कि राहुल गांधी जी को कांग्रेस अध्यक्ष बनना चाहिए।
The chorus for Rahul Gandhi returning as Congress president is growing louder. Many state units, including Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Jammu and Kashmir, have passed resolutions urging Rahul Gandhi to take charge, while many others are echoing the sentiment.
Each and every delegate has expressed their earnest desire that Rahul Gandhi should resume the charge of presidency.
He is not a consensus candidate. He is the only candidate which is acceptable to the people of congressmen in not only in Kerala, throughout the country. Because everybody knows that if he will take up the responsibility, that will be a new, we are going to start a new era in Indian politics.
A section within the Congress is questioning the need for such resolutions.
राहुल गांधी अध्यक्ष अगर उनकी हामी है वो पहली चॉइस है, लेकिन अगर वो नहीं बनना चाहते तो इस तरीके का दबाव कांग्रेस को कमजोर करता है। वो लोग जो रेजोल्यूशन पास कर रहे हैं, मेरी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है किस तरीके के राजनीतिज्ञ हैं।
The opposition parties have called the Congress party elections a sham.
It is only an election for the sake of cosmetic appearances. But in reality, it won't be the Congress president who will call the shots, but the Gandhi family who will have the remote control, just like they had the remote control of Dr. Manmohan Singh during his government.
The party wants to bring home this message that this is a democratic party that elects its president in a free and fair manner. The question really is, how successful would the Congress be in achieving this milestone? With video journalist Pavan, this is Mosmi Singh in Alapura for India Today.
So let's raise the big questions. Is the Congress really set for a non-Gandhi chief this time? Will the Gandhis play a neutral role? Will the Congress continue to be remote controlled by the Gandhis? What lies ahead? Let's take a look in our special focus this evening. And joining me now is Senior Congress leader P. Chidambaram. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Chidambaram. It appears at the moment that the Congress could have its first election to the president in more than 20 years. However, critics are already saying this could be some kind of a fixed match. Will the Gandhis stay neutral or appoint someone as a proxy candidate, as some suggest has been the practice in the past? How do you respond to this? That will there be a genuine democratic election, Mr. Chidambaram?
Where were these critics when other parties hold their elections or don't hold any election? Where were these critics when J.P. Nadda became president of the BJP, or before him, Mr. Amit Shah, Mr. Rajnath Singh, Mr. Gadkari? The Congress has held elections in the past. There was one election when Indira Gandhi was president. There was another election when you were mute and deaf and blind. When other elections take place, there will be an election. People will file their nominations. If there are more than 2 surviving nominations, there will be an election. In fact, I was quite happy to see...
Mr. Chidambaram, it's not about the fact whether there will be an election. The question is whether that election will be truly fought in a free and fair manner, because in the past, Sonia Gandhi, for example, won more than 99% of the votes against Jitendra Prasad the last time the election was held in 2000. Will there be a candidate who will be the Gandhis' favoured candidate who will thereby monopolize the election? If it is Shashi Tharoor versus Ashok Gehlot as a Gandhi-supported candidate, Mr. Gehlot?
Gandhis are members of the Electoral College. They are entitled to vote, just as I am entitled to vote, and I'm entitled also to tell my friends that I'm going to vote for so-and-so. What are your intentions? I'm not asking to look at his ballot, but I can canvass for the candidate whom I like. The Gandhis have made it clear that they will not actively canvass for any candidate. But if the Gandhis and there is another group which actively campaigns for another candidate, why do you doubt the election? If there is an overwhelmingly favored candidate, that favored candidate will get a very large proportion of the votes.
That's because Mr. Chidambaram, there are a number of people, including your son Karthi, who have already questioned the way in which the membership rolls are done in the Congress. They are not being made freely available. There's a claim that there will be a lack of transparency. Are these genuine criticisms that need to be taken on board or not before one can say that the Congress is holding a genuine, free and fair election?
But why do you doubt the Congress elections when you didn't make a whisper about any other party's non-election or so-called election? We are going through a process. We have published the electoral roll. The electoral roll of Tamil Nadu PCC is with me, and I'm sure the electoral roll of every other state is available in the PCC office. The AICC is putting up the national electoral roll. Go ahead and contest. But if somebody wins an overwhelming number of votes, I don't know.
That's because while there is talk, Mr. Chidambaram, of this election taking place, the fact is several PCCs are already saying Rahul Gandhi must become the president, unanimously elected, that there should be a consensus around Rahul Gandhi. So at one level, we hear of Shashi Tharoor taking on Ashok Gehlot, and yet day after day, more and more Congress units are joining this chorus of Rahul Gandhi for president.
But what is wrong with that? I'm entitled to say, I know my rank and file in my constituency, in my district, in several districts of Tamil Nadu. The overwhelming view is that Rahul Gandhi must become the president of the INC. Now, the PCC delegates represent the rank and file. I'm a delegate from Sarkote block. I represent the rank and file of Sarkote block. Should I not reflect their wishes? While my wishes are there, I have to reflect their wishes also, isn't it? And after consulting them, and it turns out that my view and their view are in accord, why should I not openly say that Rahul Gandhi should?
No, but there is a sense, therefore, that the entire atmosphere is being created wherein eventually Congress person will say, look, we don't want an election, we want Rahul Gandhi as president.
Sorry, we have made it clear that there will be an election. Now, whether there will be two nominations after the date of withdrawal, I can't say. I am not a fortune teller. But if there are two candidates, there will be an election. Have no doubt about it. Why don't you talk to the potential candidates and advise them not to withdraw their nomination? If there is only one candidate after the date of withdrawal, how can we hold an election? If there are two candidates, you mark my word, there will be an election.
Therefore, would you say that, in your view, what is better for the Congress at the moment? An election between more than one candidate or unanimity around Rahul Gandhi's name? What would you prefer?
You see, I have never used the word unanimity. I prefer a consensus. That is how all parties, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, elect their national presidents. For example, he is going through a party election, and there will be a state consensus of who should be their president. So there's nothing wrong with a consensus, but I'm not aiming at unanimity.
The fear, though, if I may say so, Mr. Chidambaram, is that even if there is a contest and someone is chosen, he or she will be remote controlled by the Gandhis. The keys to the Congress still lie with the Gandhis. As one Congress dissident told me off record, the Gandhis will not cede a centimeter of power.
This is completely wrong. Please understand, the party leader and party president are two different notions, two different concepts. Mahatma Gandhi was a party leader. There have been a succession of party presidents. After 1948, Jawaharlal Nehru was the acknowledged paramount party leader. There have been many, many Congress presidents, party presidents. Even under Indira Gandhi, there was a party leader and there was a party president. Keep that distinction in mind. Whether Mr. Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi become Congress president again or not, they will have a preeminent place in the party. They will have a large influence on the party. But I think if there's a non-Gandhi as party president, he will rise to the occasion. These are big shoes to fill, and the office of Congress president has a huge history, a long tradition, enormous powers and prestige and state authority. And I'm sure he or she will rise to the occasion and function as a Congress president, exercising the powers.
Let me ask you a final question then. If the choice for you was Mr. Gehlot versus Mr. Tharoor, which side are you moving towards? Who do you think will make a better Congress president given the state of your party?
Why should I disclose my vote to you? This is unusual. This vote is by secret ballot, and I'm certainly not going to say it on national television. I'll vote according to the wishes of my rank and file and my wishes. I will vote according to my wishes. But I think both of them are competent, qualified candidates to be president. But unfortunately, only one of them can be elected in a contest.
But what is that most important criteria that you see is relevant for a Congress president candidate, given, as I said, the state of your party at the moment? Do you need a strong organizational man or a charismatic figure who's a good communicator?
The most important thing is now to take the organization and restructure it. It ought to be done yesterday, not tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I've been crying the last two years. The organization is weakening every day. In more than 6 or 7 states, there's practically no organization worth the name.
The sense I get, though, Mr. Chidambaram, is that you're calling in a way for a complete structural organizational change. Whoever becomes party president, that's where you believe the first task of any new president of the Congress is. So who that will be, we'll wait and see. But for now, I appreciate that you're joining us. You're joining us from your village, of course, there. Therefore, the connections are not great at the moment. But I still appreciate that you've taken the time off. I know you're watching the cricket as well, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's widen this. You heard from Mr. P. Chidambaram. He believes there will be a contest for the Congress president's post, and he insists that whoever is the president will not be remote controlled by the Gandhis. Tavleen Singh, columnist who's tracked the Congress for years, joins me. Sanjay Jha, who was with the Congress, and we should super him as a suspended Congress leader rather than a political analyst, really. And Supriya Srinath, the Congress's spokesperson, is with us. Tavleen Singh, to you first. You heard P. Chidambaram insisting that this will be a free and fair election, that the Gandhis will respect the process. Are you cynical about that? Do you really believe that the Gandhis will have a hands-off approach to the Congress presidentship?
To me, the most important thing he said was the last thing, which is that he said the Congress party really needs to build up its organization. And for that to happen, he is right that person who can do that job is vital at the moment for the Congress party. So I'm not that cynical about this. I think that the Gandhis, I've been saying for a long time, they should play a more, they sort of chairman, non-executive role. But you need somebody who is very energetic, because the party's structure has collapsed. And so to build that up, if they do have an election, and if whoever wins it, if they can build that up, then the Congress party has a good chance in 2024 of a revival. At the moment, it's not in very good shape.
But would that mean that the keys of power would also be given to this Congress president? That whoever becomes Congress president, is he, if as you're saying, the Gandhis are non-executive chairpersons, does this individual, whoever it be, Gehlot, Tharoor, anyone else, eventually the keys of power lie with the Gandhis?
There's a difference between becoming Congress president and prime minister. And there should be that difference. So if the Gandhis want to continue to hold on to power in the sense of being the real figureheads of the party, etc., that's fine. But they do need somebody who does not actually affect their power, but who builds the party up. And, you know, I don't see a conflict in that. I think it's a very good idea.
Does it though in some way, Supriya Srinath, as I said, there's an element of cynicism because, you know, we haven't seen a real election in the Congress in decades now. I'm not saying other parties have it, but the fact is that the Indian National Congress has been seen in a way to be controlled as a family party. Is this process that you're undertaking an attempt in a way to send out a message? No, we are not a family party. Is that what it's all about? Is it just about creating the right optics, or is the Congress realizing, as Tableen Singh says, that this is a serious crisis, you're a patient in ICU, you need desperate measures?
I don't know if your cynicism stems from the fact that you continue to be a journalist who should be asking tough questions, or is that actually stemming from some age? But whatever that may be, I think the larger point that I want to make here is that I'm very happy about one thing, that India Today in its primetime show is discussing the fact that the Congress is having an election. I think it's very unfair for large parts of the media to preempt. I think this is more like an election. There will be nomination, people, if you know there are more than one candidate, they're going to campaign, they will have somebody vote for them, and then there will be an electoral process that will throw up a winner. I think we should only respect that process, because preempting them comes from cynicism and comes from very jaundiced eyes. That's the first thing that I want to say. The second thing that I want to say, and I want to say it very clearly, this is a long process. It's taken a while for these 9,000 PCC delegates to be, you know, elected. They're not nominated, they're not chosen. I'm a PCC delegate and I know what it took. I had to go and do some work. Booth elected me, it went to the block committee, then block elected the PCC delegates. I think it's only fair that we at least respect the only political party in this country that elects its chief. Yes, there has been unanimity in decision making in the last few years, but Mrs. Gandhi also did contest an election.
No, you're emphasizing the word process. I'll tell you where the cynicism, as you called it, it's not, you know, as a journalist, one has seen the Congress over the last 3 decades. One saw even a Sitaram Kesri, in a way, ensure that the election was manipulated, some would say, in his favor. In 2000, Sonia Gandhi got more than 99% of the votes. So there's a general sense that this election is, in a way, rigged, according to critics in the past. You're saying this will be very different, that in this election, the Gandhis themselves will not take sides. Is that what you're confirming, that the Gandhis will not take a side if it was, say, Ashok Gehlot versus Shashi Tharoor?
So because I'm no longer a journalist, I'm going to see the glass half full. Yes, Mrs. Gandhi got 99% of the votes, but the other way to look at it is that she was perhaps the most popular candidate. I mean, in 2000, and of course, your graphics are showing the wrong picture of Jitin Prasad instead of Jitendra Prasad. So maybe you would want to get that corrected in 2000. There was a camp that believed that there is going to be animosity, but he went on to become a political secretary. So, I mean, truth be told, she was perhaps the most popular amongst the candidates. You know, which is why I say cynicism. And one more thing that I do want to say, Rajdeep, very clearly is, this is not the first time we are going to have an election, if there will be one. This is also perhaps not going to be the last, and Congress party's elections are a part of when we took birth as a political entity. I can ask the question of many regional parties who've given their chiefs life-term presidency, or for the BJP, is there a single elected delegate who sits in that one room with 2.5 people, decides who the next president will be, a rubber stamp of sorts? You know, these are many questions, but I'm not going to point the finger in another direction. I'm going to answer questions for the Congress party. Whether it was Gopal Krishna Gokhale or Madan Mohan Malviya or Jawaharlal Nehru, or actually Gandhi ji himself or Subhash Chandra Bose or Purushottam Das Tandon or Jagjeevan Ram, they all contested elections. And so it's very rich for the media to question a process that we are undertaking, instead of actually asking, why is democracy not being strengthened in every political entity of this country? Why should the BJP not have elections? Why should the Samaj Party not have elections? Why should the TMC not have elections? Why should the TDP not have elections? You should laud us for the fact that we do.
The lack of inner party democracy in our parties is a subject which also needs even more elongated discussion. But Sanjay Jha, as someone suspended by the Congress, do you believe actually, when you hear about the fact that there's going to be a possible election in the Congress, do you really see the party turning a new leaf? Or do you still believe that all of this is being created to create the right optics that, look, actually, we are a democratic party, even if the perception is that it's family controlled?
Well, Rajdeep, I'm not at all skeptical about what the Congress is doing. Congress bashing has become a national sport. And while some of us have definitely been publicly critical of where the Congress has gone wrong, I think it's about time we stood aside and actually applauded the party for stepping forward to do things that I agree it could have done earlier. But look at the images on your screen, Rajdeep, and you look at something significant. Rahul is out there and you can see that he looks like he's enjoying himself. And politics is about playing to your strength. And Rajdeep, since you and I both are very passionate about cricket, let me give you an analogy from there. And this is what the Congress needs to understand. Everybody need not be the captain. In a team, Sachin Tendulkar gave up the captaincy, continued to be the star player of the team, but Saurav became a captain and the team actually did remarkably well. So today, when you look at Supriya, she's an excellent spokesperson. I think Rahul enjoys himself when he's actually with people, mobilizing, kind of cadres at the ground level. He should do that. Running a political organization is a very different leadership ballgame. And I think it's about time the Congress actually gave an opportunity to a Tharoor, to a Ashok Gehlot. I mean, there is talent within the party. Let them all get a chance. And I agree with you, Rajdeep, that the Gandhis are very critical and relevant to the Congress ecosystem. And if anyone foolishly believes that they'll become irrelevant because they are not the president or the vice president, I think that, frankly speaking, is being politically ignorant. The Gandhis are critical. They will remain critical, but the Congress will give itself a better vibrancy in the national narrative.
Let's take that to Tavleen Singh, that there are already these resolutions being passed by different Congress units. No, we want Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi should be the Congress president. Here is Rahul Gandhi indicating that he doesn't want to be president, but the chorus has already begun. You see, that's again where the cynicism comes, the sycophancies and the chamchagiri that has existed in the past. Can that disappear overnight? I mean, you're talking of elections on one side and these resolutions on the other.
Look, it cannot. We know perfectly well what the state of the Congress has been for a very long time. We also know that after 2014, when they lost, they should have done a lot more to start rebuilding the party then. And they didn't, because they were absolutely certain that in 2019, Modi would lose. So what did they do? They produced Priyanka Gandhi as their big card to be played against him. And that didn't work. But if now they have realized that the party has to be strong for the Congress to win. It doesn't matter who in the end becomes prime minister or who controls the keys, as you call it, to power in the party. What does matter is that you have a working president who can go right down to the bottom of the rot that is set in and start cleaning it up and say, get people to understand that the party is rebuilding itself. And, I agree with Supriya. But why the shadow of the Congress party? Which party is not controlled by 2.5 people? Can challenge Modi? Sure. At least here, we see an effort to rebuild the party. That's great. If you take Narendra Modi away from the BJP, what is the BJP?
No, but if you take the Gandhis out of the Congress, what happens to the Congress, Tavleen Singh?
You're not taking them out.
That's the flip side of the argument. I mean, this non-executive chairperson that you're talking about, how will that actually work in practice? What will be the role of this non-executive chairperson family?
Well, they are the figureheads. They're the glue that holds the party together. But they really have not shown any inclination to do the dirty work. So if you've got a Congress president who is energetic enough to rebuild the party, great.
So that's where it comes to Supriya Shrineth. You see, what Tavleen Singh just said.
Can I make a small point,
that
please?
The dirty work. No, just a minute. Supriya, the dirty work will be done by this, whoever becomes Congress president. Rahul Gandhi has all the power and the focus without necessarily accountability of responsibility. He's lost 2 consecutive general elections. Certainly the second, he was the face of the party. But he will continue on this yatra playing other roles as some kind of a mentor. But the dirty organizational work, the bricks and mortar of politics will be done by this president. Is that what you're suggesting?
So I think we are preempting a process that is underway. I think we are even preempting the notification has not come. It will only come on the 22nd. The nominations will be done and then we will see who's putting in their hat in the ring and who's not. So I'm not going to preempt any of these assumptions, but I want to raise 2 important points to an assumption that you made here. You use the word chamchagiri and psychophancy because people are pointing, passing resolutions. Why can I not turn around and ask, maybe this is the aspiration of an average Congress worker? I'm a Congress worker and I get inspired by Rahul Gandhi. I like his absolute
then why doesn't he become president?
Determination to take on
Then
Mr.
why doesn't he
Modi.
become
He's not
president?
somebody who's scared. No, wait, I'm answering your question and I will come to that.
If he's your inspirational figure, why doesn't he take up the responsibility?
Rajdeep, you have asked me a question. Be rest assured, I'm not going to run away from it. I will answer your question. So first of all, I think it is very unfair for you to call these resolutions psychophancy and chamchagiri. Maybe this is what an average Congress person feels. This is their aspiration, including mine. The second question that you asked, that Rahul Gandhi is enjoying himself with no accountability. He took accountability of the 2019 loss and quit this position. Who in his position would give up power? So let's cut the man some slack. This is very unfair, firstly. The second thing that I want to say is, I think every party needs a moral compass. And I think to our party, Rahul Gandhi is that moral compass. He takes on Mr. Modi. He holds the government accountable. He is not going to be scared by your EDs and your income taxes or the CBI rates. And he says it. He says, you can put me in prison for 5 years. You can ask me the questions. I'm not going to be scared. I will still continue to hold you accountable. But sections of the opposition, जो लुका छिपी चलती है वो नहीं चल सकती है. You cannot play mice and cat and mouse in this. You have to take on the government of the day because they are ruining the economy. They are tearing the fabric of our country and they have to be stopped. This Padyatra is not easy to do. It's very strenuous. It takes on you physically and mentally. It does not just need somebody to be physically fit to do it. You have to be absolutely resolute to Jodo Bharat, and which is why he is doing this. I think it's very unfair commentary on him.
Okay, but there will be eventually also a feeling, Sanjay Jha, as to kaun banega Pradhan Mantri. The face, you see, partly because of television, elections in India have become presidential-like. You've got Mr. Modi there, and then who becomes the opposition's face or the Congress's face? Is Rahul Gandhi, according to you, still the face, irrespective of whether a Tharoor becomes Congress president or a Gehlot or someone else? Or do you believe it's possible to even have an alternative face to the Gandhi family leading the opposition and the Congress?
No, Rajdeep, let me tell you, it is pretty extraordinary and that the Congress is actually going ahead potentially without the Gandhis running for the Congress president. I think that's a big step. It's a pretty spectacular shift from a party that has been largely fossilized in the past. So let's give them brownie points and full credit for pushing the boundaries here, Rajdeep. The second point, I also believe no matter the hype about Arvind Kejriwal and the others, if any party today can stop the BJP's juggernaut, the authoritarian, kind of railroading of the entire institutions in this country, it has to be the Congress, but the Congress has not been fighting fit for a long time. So I think all these developments actually are headed for the right direction. After a long time, there is a sense of optimism returning. I do believe Rahul stepping back from the leadership. I know Congress loves him. Supriya is so right, Rajdeep. when she says that today if Rahul Gandhi were to stand for the Congress president, it's a no-brainer that it's a deal done. But give the credit, therefore, for Rahul to step back and for the Congress to embrace change. And I believe if the Congress resurrects itself, which it can, I honestly believe things can change remarkably. You never know what can happen tomorrow. So these are positive developments, and I will keep my fingers crossed.
Final word, Tavleen Singh, both Supriya and in a way even Sanjay Jha are Congress persons. The rest of us are not. Those who are not wonder whether outside this echo chamber, if I may call it, of Congress persons who still believe Rahul Gandhi is the right person to lead them into the future, there are those who will probably want change which is disruptive, which breaks the status quo. To that extent, do you believe whoever becomes Congress president could also potentially become a face for the future? That eventually you will need maybe someone outside the Gandhis to challenge Mr. Modi.
Excuse me, is Mr. Nadda a challenge to Mr. Modi? Ask yourself that. But I totally agree. I'm not a fan of the dynasty at all, but I'm very keen on an opposition party surviving, because what is happening, Sanjay Jha is right, that there is a kind of complacency, an authoritarian, and we're being called an electoral autocracy by the world. And we know the reasons why. All of us know the reasons why. So if there is a revival of a party that doesn't stand for autocracy and that has represented a different kind of political idea, well, I'm all for it. Let them get on with the job.
Okay. Let's wait and see. Maybe for once we should shed the cynicism when it comes to the Congress party. As we've been saying, very little inner party democracy across our political spectrum. If the Congress wants to put the process first and choose a non-Gandhi, so be it. Who knows what tomorrow brings. For now, Tavleen Singh, Supriya Shinin, Sanjay Jha, good to have three clear voices joining me on the show tonight. Good to see, in a way, this kind of introspection finally seemingly taking place, or a need for change being recognized by the major opposition party in the country. From there, let's turn to what I am calling my other big focus today, and from the world of sport. Because what has happened in the last 48 hours is not nice. Yesterday, you might recall, a footballer, star footballer, Sunil Chhetri, was virtually pushed off the stage by the West Bengal governor during the Durand Cup tournament. We'll have those pictures in a moment, but it's even worse. Sporting shame in Uttar Pradesh's Saharanpur today. Food that was served for women kabaddi players was cooked in toilets. Puris and rice were seen lying on the floor of the toilet, bang near the urinal. The horrifying incident comes when there is a 3-day state-level under-17 girls kabaddi tournament taking place. The Sports Authority of India official in charge has been suspended, but the question remains, are our sportsmen respected if they are not cricketers? Take a look.
They are India's budding kabaddi talent, toiling to make it big at national level. But in return, what they got was shame, apathy and betrayal. India was horrified when young women national level kabaddi players were served food inside toilet. You heard that right.
मैंने कहते कि मतलब भीतर जाकर मतलब चावल उठाओ हमने दबा के मैंने तो दबा के देखे थे मैं कच्चे से थे टॉयलेट में रखा था जी वहाँ पे चावल थे जी हम कच्चे थे जी हम उठा के देखे थे जी तो वे क्या लगे ले वो फोर्स कर रहे थे हमें उठाने के लिए.
A deeply embarrassed UP government sacked top sports officials and ordered a probe. Sports Minister Anurag Thakur directed state government to take strict action against the accused contractor and officers.
जो भी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर आरोपी होगा और जो भी अधिकारी इस पर है, मैंने पिछले कल ही उसके ऊपर कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई करने के लिए कहा है और उस कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को भी भविष्य के लिए ब्लैकलिस्ट करने के लिए निर्देश दे दिए.
The opposition was quick to hit out at the Yogi government and called it incompetent.
बच्चों के लिए कोई इंतजाम नहीं है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं है, रुकने रुकाने का, ठहरने का, खाना दिलाने का. बताओ आज के समय पर कौन टॉयलेट में खाना खाएगा? ये सरकार की इनकॉम्पिटेंट सरकार है.
sports administration in India is notorious for unequal treatment, bordering on harassment when it comes to non-cricketing sports persons. Recently, India saw national football captain Sunil Chhetri getting insulted during the presentation of the Durand Cup. He was shoved aside by the Bengal governor, La Ganeshan, who was more interested in a better photo op.
ऐसी हरकत की है, उनका अनादर किया है, तो मैं मानता कि उनको सबके सामने माफी मांगनी चाहिए.
While cricket is a religion in our country and cricketers are treated like God, it is unfortunate that other sports and their stars do not get the recognition they deserve. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let me play those visuals again for you for a moment, for those who might have missed them again. The governor of West Bengal, Mr. Ganeshan, pushing aside or at least putting his hand. Those are the visuals first, of course, of what happened in, pushing aside Sunil Chhetri during the Durand Cup ceremony where Chhetri's team won the title. He would rather have himself in the center of the frame rather than a Sunil Chhetri is asked to quietly move aside. I want to use those visuals to turn to Baichung Bhutia, because Baichung Bhutia, you've been arguably the finest footballer of our recent times. Sunil Chhetri has followed in your giant footsteps. Do you believe that footballers, kabaddi players are ever given the kind of respect they deserve? Even after all these kabaddi leagues, the ISL starting, do sports persons other than cricketers get the recognition they deserve, the respect they deserve?
No, I think over the years, definitely it's getting better, but the incident what we saw today was completely disrespectful, disgraceful as well. And, the thing which we're just seeing on the screen right now, I think, I think it should stop these politicians coming into the award ceremony and taking the limelight. I think we should completely stop. If they are being called as well, I think they need to be, the organizers have to brief them properly. And, this is a moment for captains, especially Sunil Chhetri and his team, to take the limelight. But the governor can't be pushing him away and wanting to come in front for his own fame. And this is a moment for all the sports person. When you work so hard to lift a trophy, that is your moment. And I think organizers should brief them. In fact, I think we should all ban politicians coming into, giving award ceremonies in sports, because they are always there to take the limelight. Other thing, obviously, was a very disgusting thing to see, even in today's day and in today's day, to see a sports person like kabaddi team under 17 girls getting food in the bathroom, which is disgraceful. And I hope, we heard sports minister taking strict action. I hope people are taken into, the actions are taken against the organizers, because this does not really give a good image of sports in India.
You said things have changed, and I'm glad you said about, because I've always believed that organizers should ensure that former sports persons are the ones who give these awards. I couldn't agree with you more, but we have this VVIP culture where politicians want to always give the awards. I want to ask, you said that things are changing. Are they changing fast enough? Is that the problem? Because, we've done much better internationally in recent times. However, at the domestic level, there's a fear that our tournaments are still run in the old Neta Babu style, where the netas who are in charge of these associations still call the shots. Is that where the problem is, that at the domestic level, our sport is still stuck sometimes in the past?
I think it is still stuck in the past in domestic level, and I'm talking about district to state level. And some sports persons, some sports obviously in the national level has got that recognition and the respect. But we are more concerned about the district and the state level. Today, still in state level, there are under 17, like what we saw in UP, there are under 17 junior nationals, sub-junior nationals traveling and making them stay in some horrible conditions where I think we've seen in the past, and also we're seeing it in today's life. The transport, the way they are when they have to travel from especially northeast to when you're playing in South India, you have no reservations in train. You're not given flight tickets. So the kind of difficulties a lot of the sports person face in that state level when they're playing under 17 or junior or sub-junior, it's so discouraging that a lot of sports person, after having to go through all the difficulties in terms of facilities where they stay, where they play, the ground conditions in those places, and then the travel, I think a lot of them does get discouraged and tend to quit, their particular sports, and which is, I think, very, very sad. And it's not changed so much over the years in district and state level tournaments.
So how does one overcome the gap? I know, Baichung, you contested for the Football Federation post and sadly lost out because, of course, the ruling BJP went and supported your rival. That's been happening even when the Congress was in power. Politicians like to control sports federation. But how does one reduce the gap between the fact that you've got a good scheme now for Olympic sport, but it doesn't work, as you said, at the grassroots? So an under-17 kabaddi team will have to deal with, rice being served in toilets. I played cricket for my state. And we are talking about 30, 40 years ago, we would have to go, 4 or 5 to a room. So do you believe, that how does one bridge the gap between Olympic sport and local sport?
No, I think the most important thing is there are deserving sports person who can be great administrator as well, and give them that opportunity. I think they can understand the players' problem, players' issue, and the tournament as well. And I'm not saying all the sports person can become great administrator, but give them that opportunity, and you will see a lot of sports person coming out and becoming great administrator. But if you always get politics involved in it, you have political interference, then you don't get the right sports person who's got the right knowledge, right intention to promote the sports getting into it. So I think it's sad that in today's world, there have been talks about sports person leading the federation and state associations. But despite that, whether it's in state or whether it's in central, there has always been a political interference. And if they want completely, want political interference that way, then why don't you make elections for sports associations and federation a political? Give them a political symbol and tell them this is my political party candidate. Make it open, but don't try and pretend to make sure that we won't interfere. This should be completely sports thing, and at the back you have a full political interference going on. That I think is not fair. Let the best people, let the sports person, ex-retired sports person. There are capable sports person. We've seen that already in BCCI. Saurabh doing a great job. There are other sports person in other fields who can do well. But if you have politics involved in it, then you will not get the right people coming and promoting the sport and taking the sport further.
And more importantly, also the bureaucracy, which has been exposed in what we've seen in Saharanpur, particularly at the district level, unacceptable completely. Baichung Bhutia, one of the legends of the sport, I as always appreciate you joining me and with your plain speak there. Time to change. Please, for God's sake, when there are big tournaments, let the sports persons give the awards. It happens across the world. Why should we be different with our VVIP culture where netas always want to give awards? Think about that too. Let's take a break. When we return, some good news. And the good news today is coming from the Kashmir Valley, where guess what? The movies are back. That's right. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
I noticed something new. You started using a new body lotion. Fun.
I'm so sorry for the delay. I was on another call. It just kept going on.
No, Papa. You were in a steam bath. Steam bath? At home? 2 steam bath he takes.
Go to your homework.
It's 7:20 already. The kickoff's in 5 minutes. Get all the boys. We have the entire place to ourselves, man. Not working?
Of course it is. But I don't want you guys to be using this bathroom. So use the other one.
रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान. Is this favorite hymn of Mahatma Gandhi a part of Hindutva agenda? At least that is what the former Chief Minister of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir and PDP Chief Mehbooba Mufti feels. Is there merit in her contention that Kashmir is now becoming the laboratory of Hindutva? The BJP has hit right back. Join me, Gaurav Sawant, as I get to the latest on India First at 10 p.m. tonight, only on India Today.
Welcome back. You are with the news today. Let's end with our good news today story. And our good news today comes from the Kashmir Valley, where guess what? The cinema halls are back. They've reopened their doors for the first time since the last 32 years in the valley. Jammu and Kashmir LG Manoj Sinha inaugurated the new Inox multiplex in Srinagar. Clearly, there is some hope amidst the despair. May the movies be the signal of that hope. From me and from my entire team, thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night. Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar. Take a look at this report.
A long interval of 32 years is over. Big screen returning to the Kashmir Valley. Trumping terror threat and the Islamist fatwas. Inaugurated by Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha, Inox, a private movie theatre company, has brought this world-class Dolby technology in a 3-screen multiplex to the valley.
किसको सजा देंगे आप? करवाने वाले को या करने वाले को?
Hrithik Roshan and Saif Ali Khan starrer Vikram Vedha will be the first to be officially released on 30th September. After Pulwama and Shopian, Srinagar opened doors to cinema goers amid security precautions.
बहुत अच्छा फील हो रहा है स्टूडेंट्स के लिए या फिर किसी भी के लिए भी एंटरटेनमेंट पर्पस के लिए एक बहुत अच्छा अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल रही है.
मेरा ये फर्स्ट एक्सपीरियंस है. मैंने आज ज़िंदगी में पहली बार यहाँ पे सिनेमा मैंने देखा और मुझे बहुत ही अच्छा लगा और बहुत ही अच्छा महसूस हुआ यहाँ पे.
श्रीनगर की जितनी भी जनरेशन अभी की है वो सारी डिप्रेशन का शिकार हो गई है. सिनेमा हॉल खोले गए हैं, शायद इसकी वजह से ये जो जनरेशन है ये बाहर आएगी इन चीज़ों से.
Opening a first multiplex cinema in the Kashmir Valley after the gap of 32 years will not only make the cinema possible for the locals but will also boost tourism in the Kashmir Valley. There was not any kind of facility for evening hours for the tourists visiting in the valley. Definitely this multiplex will be another entertainment for the tourists in Kashmir.
Kashmir-based businessman and prominent educationist Vijay Dhar is the mind behind the return of cinema to Kashmir.
Yes, I think 50% of the population have not enjoyed a film for the last 30 years in a cinema hall. 50% of those, even like me, who would go to Jammu and first go and ask which is the film on today and go and see a film in the luxury. I want the same luxury to be created, what is available to anybody in Jammu or in Delhi. That's my mission, sort of.
Kashmir's once thriving matinee culture had local residents queue up for the latest Hollywood and Hindi films at popular Neelam, Regal, Palladium and Broadway theatres. But after terror threats in the 1990s, cinema halls had shut down. 32 years later, now with cautious steps and a semblance of normalcy, the theatres may buzz again. With Ashraf Vani in Srinagar, Bureau Report, India Today.
It's 7:20 already. The kickoff's in 5 minutes. Get all the boys. We have the entire place to ourselves, man.